Let me tell you something. Intelligence is not just about getting straight A's. It's not about knowing all the facts. And it's definitely not about flexing how smart you are. Real intelligence shows up in the way you live, the way you move through life, and the way you impact people around you. And today, I'm breaking down 7 undeniable signs of an intelligent person. If you see yourself in these, then it's time to stop doubting your worth, because you're carrying a rare gift. You know, one of the greatest signs of true intelligence is the spirit of a lifelong learner. And when I say that, I don't just mean sitting in a classroom or memorizing facts for a test. I'm talking about a deep, burning hunger inside of you that refuses to settle. A fire that says, there's more to know, more to see, more to become. Intelligent people understand that life itself is the ultimate classroom, and every single day is another lesson. They know the moment you think you've arrived, the moment you believe you've learned enough, that's the moment you start dying inside. Think about it. Every breakthrough in history, every invention, every leap forward in humanity came because somebody stayed curious. They didn't stop with what they already knew. They pushed further. They asked questions everyone else was too afraid or too lazy to ask. They were humble enough to admit, I don't know it all, but I can learn. That humility is power. It keeps your mind open, your spirit alert, and your vision sharp. And the thing about lifelong learners is they don't just collect information for the sake of sounding smart. They don't care about showing off knowledge. They crave understanding, because understanding transforms the way you live. See, information fills your head, but wisdom shapes your decisions. And intelligent people chase wisdom. They'll sit in silence with a book while the world runs wild with distraction. They'll lean in during a conversation, soaking up insight from someone older, wiser, or from a completely different background. They're not ashamed to be students of life, because they know that every person, every experience, every challenge has something to teach them. You can spot an intelligent person in the way they treat mistakes. Where others see failure, they see instruction. Where others feel defeated, they feel directed. They don't walk away asking, why me? They walk away asking, what's the lesson? That shift in perspective is what elevates them above the rest. It's what allows them to grow when others get stuck. And that's because intelligence isn't about being flawless. It's about being flexible enough to learn, strong enough to change, and wise enough to apply what you've discovered. I remember meeting a man once who carried himself with quiet strength. He didn't have the fanciest degree. He wasn't loud about what he knew, but the depth in his words, the way he observed the world, the way he listened before he spoke. It made you lean in closer. I asked him once how he became so wise, and he just smiled and said, because every day I try to be a student. I learn from my children, from strangers, from mistakes, even from my pain. Life is always teaching. Most people just don't pay attention. And that struck me, because the truth is, intelligent people have trained themselves to pay attention. They don't let lessons slip by unnoticed. They don't let growth opportunities slide past while they're too busy scrolling or complaining. They see value in every moment because they understand that every moment is shaping who they're becoming. That's why intelligent people are so rare. They don't walk around with arrogance. They walk around with awareness. They're not pretending they've figured it all out. They're constantly searching, stretching, reaching. And because of that, their minds stay alive, their spirit stays fresh, and their lives keep expanding in ways that amaze the people around them. One of the most powerful signs of an intelligent person is their ability to think before they speak. It might sound simple, but in a world where people are quick to react, quick to argue, and quick to fill silence with noise, that pause is rare. That pause is discipline. That pause is wisdom. An intelligent person understands that words are not just sounds, they are seeds. Once spoken, they take root in someone's heart and mind. They can build a person up, or they can tear someone down. That's why intelligent people don't rush to speak just to prove a point or to sound impressive. They weigh their words like gold because they know their words can change an atmosphere, shift a conversation, even alter the course of someone's life. Picture a crowded room where everyone's talking at once, voices clashing, opinions flying like arrows. In the middle of all that noise, The intelligent one stays calm, listening, observing, taking in the energy of the room. They're not in a hurry to jump in because they know wisdom takes time to form. And when they finally do open their mouth, people lean in because there's weight to their words. That pause before they speak isn't hesitation, it's calculation. It's the mark of someone who understands that silence can be louder than careless chatter. I remember being in a meeting once where tempers were flaring. People were cutting each other off, everyone fighting to have the last word. And in the corner sat a man who barely said a thing. He just listened. Every now and then he'd lean back, nod, and jot something down. You could almost feel people wondering if he was even paying attention. But then when the room finally fell quiet, he spoke. And in less than a minute, he summarized the problem, proposed a solution, and reminded everyone of the bigger vision. The tension dissolved instantly. Why? Because he didn't waste his words. He had measured them, refined them, and released them at the exact right moment. That is intelligence at work. See, speaking without thinking is easy. It takes no effort to blurt out whatever comes to mind. But it takes real strength to pause, to hold back, to run your words through the filter of wisdom before letting them leave your lips. Intelligent people have mastered that restraint. They understand that sometimes silence is the strongest answer. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every argument needs your energy. Sometimes the most intelligent move is to say nothing at all. Time reveals the truth. And when they do choose to speak, it isn't random. Their words carry clarity. Their words carry direction. Their words have the power to calm storms or ignite change. That's why people trust them, follow them, and remember them. Because while the world is overflowing with noise, their voice becomes a rare and precious sound. They don't just speak to be heard, they speak to be understood, to add value, to leave an imprint that lasts long after the conversation ends. There's something powerful about the way intelligent people approach conversations. They're not satisfied with surface talk, the kind of empty chatter that fills the silence but leaves you feeling hollow. They're not impressed with gossip about who did what or who's better than who. They crave something deeper, something richer, something that stirs the soul and stretches the mind. Intelligent people are drawn to conversations that ignite vision, that wrestle with purpose, that push you to think bigger than your current reality. When they sit down with someone, they don't just want to talk, they want to connect. I remember sitting across from a man who had built a life full of meaning, and the moment he opened his mouth, I knew this wasn't going to be a casual exchange. He didn't ask me about the weather or about what I was watching on TV. He leaned in, looked me in the eye, and asked, "What impact do you want to leave on this earth before you die?" That question shook me to my core, pulled me out of the ordinary, and forced me to wrestle with the extraordinary. That's what intelligent people do. They ask questions that make you pause, reflect, and sometimes even confront truths you've been avoiding. And it's not just about the questions they ask. It's about the way they listen. You can feel it. When you're speaking, they're not just waiting for their turn to respond. They're absorbing every word, searching for meaning behind the words, paying attention to the tone, the pauses, the emotion. They listen not just with their ears, but with their heart. And because of that, when they respond, their words hit deeper. You walk away feeling seen, heard, and valued, not just entertained. The beauty of deep conversations is that they awaken parts of us that surface talk keeps asleep. When you're sitting with someone who challenges your thinking, you begin to question your own patterns, your own beliefs, your own comfort zones. Intelligent people have a way of pulling greatness out of you without even trying. They don't settle for, "How was your day?" They want to know, "What did you learn from today? What inspired you? What tested you? What grew you?" And those kinds of conversations leave you different than they found you. I've seen friendships built entirely on shallow exchanges. And when the storms of life hit, those connections crumble because there was no depth holding them together. But when you've had conversations about dreams, about struggles, about faith, about the meaning of life itself, those relationships hold weight. They become anchors. They become the kind of bonds that survive distance, time, and adversity. That's why intelligent people are selective about who they give their time to. They don't waste energy in spaces that drain them. They seek out voices that sharpen them, souls that stretch them, and minds that challenge them. Maybe that's why being in the presence of an intelligent person is unforgettable. You don't just remember what they said, you remember how they made you feel. You remember the fire they sparked in you, the way they pushed you to see more, dream more, become more. Because when they speak, they're not trying to impress you with knowledge. They're trying to awaken you to your own. One of the clearest marks of intelligence is the way a person handles criticism. Most people, when they hear words that cut or expose a weakness, immediately throw up walls of defense. Their pride kicks in, their voice rises, their mind scrambles to justify, explain, or fight back. But an intelligent person doesn't react that way. They pause, they listen, they sift through the sting of those words and ask themselves, is there something in this I can use? They understand that criticism, whether it's delivered with kindness or with cruelty, can still carry seeds of wisdom. And instead of letting their ego shut the door, they open it and let growth walk in. I remember watching a young athlete get chewed out by his coach in front of an entire team. The words were sharp, the tone was harsh, and you could feel the tension in the air. Some of the players hung their heads in embarrassment. Others whispered about how unfair it was. But that young man just stood there, eyes locked on the coach, nodding slowly, taking it all, and he didn't fire back, he didn't sulk, he didn't crumble. Later, when I asked him how he managed to stay so calm, he said it. I don't like how he said it, but I needed to hear it. He just showed me where I can be better. And I'm not about to waste that gift. That response told me everything I needed to know about his future, because anyone who can take correction without letting their pride destroy them is destined for growth. See, intelligence isn't about always being right. It's about being wise enough to recognize that you're not perfect, that there's still more to learn. Blind spots exist. A fool ignores correction and keeps stumbling in the same cycle. An intelligent person takes correction, even when it hurts, and uses it to break free from the cycle. They don't see criticism as an attack on their identity. They see it as an opportunity to refine their potential. And let's be real, it's not easy. Hearing someone point out your flaws can feel like standing in front of a mirror you didn't ask for, one that highlights all the cracks you'd rather hide. But intelligent people lean into that discomfort. They don't confuse their worth with their mistakes. They know being corrected doesn't make them less valuable, it makes them more prepared. They treat every piece of feedback like a tool in their toolbox, something they can use to build a stronger version of themselves. What separates them is perspective. Where most people hear criticism and feel condemned, intelligent people hear it and feel challenged. Where most people shrink back, intelligent people rise up. They filter out the bitterness, the exaggeration, the ego of the one delivering it if necessary, and they extract the lesson. They know that even harsh words can carry hidden treasures if you're wise enough to look for them. And because they approach life this way, they grow faster. They mature deeper, and they walk stronger than those who waste energy defending themselves instead of developing themselves. One of the most remarkable traits of an intelligent person is their ability to see patterns where others see chaos. While most people are reacting, responding, scrambling to keep up, intelligent individuals are quietly observing, connecting dots, and predicting outcomes before anyone else even realizes what's happening. They don't just live in the moment, they read the moments, they understand the rhythms of life, and they spot the threads that link one event to another. That's why when opportunities appear, they're ready. When dangers arise, they're prepared. What looks like luck to others is really insight awareness, foresight in motion. I remember meeting a woman who had built a thriving business from nothing. She wasn't the loudest in the room. She didn't brag about her accomplishments, but there was a calm, steady force about her that made people take notice. One day, I asked her how she seemed to anticipate shifts in her industry before anyone else did. She smiled and said, "I pay attention. I watch patterns. I notice what people do consistently, what they avoid, what they repeat. And then I ask myself, where does this lead?" Most people are too busy chasing trends to see them forming. But I see the currents under the waves. That's the difference between living reactively and living intelligently. Being able to see the currents before the storm hits, to understand the invisible forces shaping your world, and to move strategically instead of blindly. Intelligent people develop this ability because they are curious observers. They don't just glance at life, they study it. They notice behaviors. They detect repetition. They sense cause and effect in ways that aren't obvious. A conversation, a small gesture, a market trend, even a mistake can reveal a hidden truth if you have the eyes to see it. And seeing those patterns gives them power. It allows them to make better decisions, avoid unnecessary mistakes, and capitalize on opportunities that others can't even imagine. There's also a patience in this kind of intelligence. Most people want instant results. They want to act immediately, to respond before thinking, to chase the obvious reward. Someone who sees patterns understands timing. They know that sometimes the key is not move quickly, but to watch, to wait, to let the pieces fall into place so that when the time comes, they act decisively and effectively. That patience is not hesitation, it's strategy. It's the wisdom of knowing that the world is a web of interconnections, and if you understand those connections, you control the narrative instead of being controlled by it. I've watched these people in action, quietly moving through life while others rush past them. Blind to the currents, they read situations like a map. They anticipate reactions before they happen, and they navigate obstacles with almost uncanny foresight. It's not magic, it's intelligence sharpened by awareness, by observation, by the relentless habit of noticing what everyone else overlooks. That ability to see patterns, to connect the dots, to read the invisible lines of cause and effect, is what allows them to turn complexity into clarity and chaos into opportunity. And that skill sets them apart from the ordinary in ways that are profound and lasting. There's a profound difference between people who chase pleasure and people who chase purpose. And one of the clearest signs of intelligence is the way a person chooses the latter. Intelligent people understand that life isn't about momentary highs, flashy possessions, or the approval of others. They know that satisfaction that comes from chasing fleeting thrills is temporary, empty, and leaves you craving more. True fulfillment, the kind that fills the soul and leaves a lasting mark, comes from living with intention, from aligning your actions with a vision bigger than yourself. They're not satisfied with just existing. They want to contribute, to create, to leave something meaningful behind. I once met a man who had every reason to chase comfort. He had money, influence, and recognition, yet he lived simply, woke early, devoted himself to mentoring young people in his community. When I asked him why he didn't just enjoy the rewards he had worked for, he smiled and said, "I could enjoy the comforts, but comfort doesn't challenge me. Purpose does. Purpose keeps me awake, keeps me growing, keeps me alive." That's the essence of intelligent living. Understanding that a life without direction is like a ship adrift, beautiful in its design, but powerless against the currents. A purposeful life, no matter how challenging, is a life that navigates with clarity, courage, and vision. Intelligent people make decisions not based on what feels good in the moment, but on what advances their mission, strengthens their character, and impacts the world around them. They ask themselves, will this action bring me closer to the life I was meant to live, or will it distract me from it? And they have the discipline to choose the path less traveled, the one that demands effort, sacrifice, and resilience, because they understand that growth and fulfillment are never found on the easy road. There's also a kind of courage that comes with living purposefully. It's easy to follow the crowd, to chase what everyone else is chasing, to measure success by society's shallow standards. But intelligent people resist that pull. They pursue their calling even when it's unpopular, even when it's lonely, even when the world doesn't yet understand. They know that the impact they create will ripple outward, touching lives and shaping futures in ways that temporary pleasures never could. Their intelligence lies not just in their mind, but in the clarity of their vision and the strength of their commitment. I remember a young woman I once met who was passionate about education reform. Every day she faced obstacles, bureaucracy, skepticism, limited resources, but she refused to quit. She sacrificed sleep, leisure, personal convenience because she believed in a future where children had opportunities she never had. Watching her, I realized that intelligence is not measured by grades, titles, or accolades. It's measured by the ability to recognize your gifts, your responsibility, and your capacity to make a difference. It's measured by the courage to pursue purpose relentlessly, knowing that the satisfaction derived from meaningful work far outweighs the fleeting pleasure of comfort or ease. Intelligent people carry this understanding in every aspect of their lives. Their goals are intentional, their actions deliberate, and their hearts driven by a vision that transcends themselves. They wake up with clarity, they move with focus, and they live with a fire that can't be extinguished by distractions, setbacks, or the noise of a world obsessed with temporary thrills. Every choice, every step, every sacrifice is calculated to serve a purpose far greater than personal gratification. And that is what gives their lives depth, impact, and an intelligence that resonates far beyond the mind. It reaches the soul. So, if you recognize yourself in these 7 signs, don't downplay it. Stop letting society measure intelligence by grades, titles, or degrees. Intelligence is the power to learn to adapt, to think deeply, to rise above emotions, to see beyond the surface, and to live with purpose. That's the kind of intelligence the world is starving for. And that's the kind of intelligence you've been carrying all along.